everyone, welcome to the stream. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Hope you're having a nice day today. Hello. And we are going to be playing Orochi. Oh my gosh. Stuff has been happening. Oh, what's gonna happen now? I'm excited. I'm excited. Ah, the body wasn't there! Okay. Oh, gotta get into reading mode. The body wasn't there. Hey. The police didn't arrest me because of that, but I didn't know whether to feel happy about it. Just like Satoko had said, I failed to kill her uncle. The body wasn't there, so I was forced to conclude as much, no matter what strange natural disaster, coincidence, or miracle it might have implied. In order to free Satoko, I became a demon, and this abnormal world was my reward. Yes, metaphorically, I had fallen into the demon world. But if that price had been exchanged for the life of Satoko's uncle, then that would have been fine. Since Satoko's uncle was still alive, still shackling her to him, I needed to become a demon once again. One more time. No, as many times as it took. I would kill that man over and over again until Satoko was liberated. I had already awoken. I looked at the clock to see what it was early in the morning, at just about 5. It was already light outside. Once I had hardened my resolve to become a demon again, I could feel my whole body teeming with the awakened power once more. Time wasn't an issue. No matter what, I'd do it. I got myself up. The exhaustion from the past 2 days was completely swept away, and I didn't even feel sleepy anymore either. I slowly rose and made sure my body was moving like I wanted it to. I could feel blood flowing through each and every one of my fingers. As I got dressed, I let my mind wander, and had a strange thought. These 2 days, while I've said it was for Satoko's sake, the only thing on my mind has been killing. I've said it was for Satoko, but while actually carrying out the act, I had completely forgotten about Satoko, albeit only temporarily. Maybe initially it was for Satoko's sake, but now I was just a demon, killing for the sake of killing. And as a result, I'd sunk into a world fit for such a demon. Maybe it was the same for Satoshi. He resolved himself to kill his aunt to save Satoko, became a demon, then disappeared from the sunlit Hinamizawa, vanishing into the demon world. Which meant that, after all was said and done, I'd met the same fate as him. I tried to avoid making the same mistakes, but it happened anyway. Which meant that maybe Satoshi was here. Satoshi had come to this world a year before me, so he would be here somewhere. Then, surprised, I stopped walking. There was the second set of footsteps I'd grown so used to hearing. Could you be Satoshi? The empty, lifeless air wouldn't give me an answer, but I felt a strange kind of relief, that there was someone there, that Satoshi had stuck with me the whole time. Let's go, Satoshi. Once more. This time, we will set Satoko free for sure. I quietly slipped out of the house so my parents wouldn't notice. If they caught me now when I'd been out way too late for 2 days now, they'd give me a really angry talking to. I didn't have the time to allow for that to happen. Today, I would put an end to it. If the dead body disappeared, then I didn't have to bury it. I could just burn it to ashes and then take them with me so I could kill him again every time he resurrected. I'd do it again. I'd kill him again. And this time, I'd set her free. Outside, the morning light was so beautiful as to stagger belief. I went to the storage room to find weapons with which I could kill him for sure. Blunt or not, it didn't matter to me. Right now, I didn't need to care whether someone saw or if the police came. This world had gone crazy after all. A world where I'd shown up at the festival and had fun even though I wasn't there. Even if the police arrested me, I'd probably end up going right back home as if nothing had happened. Both me and that other Kechumabera. Even without me, he'd fill in. I could vanish from Hinamizawa without anyone noticing. So basically, I didn't care if I was mistakenly killed. Even if I died, Kechumabera would remain. After all, this isn't the world I belong in. If I was going to be killed mistakenly for Satoko's sake, then that was just part of my duty as her Nini. As those desperate thoughts became serious, the morning air felt more refreshing to me, strangely enough. Oh, This one's scary. Let's go with this. It was a hatchet meant for chopping thick firewood. Its hefty steel blade was sinister, almost as though it was a tool meant for killing people. I couldn't exactly take it out in public like that, so I wrapped it in a little old newspaper, and tossed it into the basket on my bike. Sorry for using you for evil all the time. I'll need you again today, my legs. I apologized to my bike for some reason. For the past 3 days, I've only used it for dangerous things. I've been riding this bike ever since I lived in my old town. I could walk most places I wanted to go, so I hadn't used it all that much. My mom had bought it for me when I entered cram school, thinking it would be a convenient way to get to the station since it was far away. So I'd always used it to get back and forth from cram school. I'd only ever put textbooks and class materials in the front basket too. I never tried to put a hatchet that I'd be using to kill someone in here. When I came to Hinamizawa, life finally felt fun. I met the best friends ever had some of the greatest times ever. Those times might have been shattered now, but it was my greatest wish that I could get them back, even if I had to risk my life to do it. That's how fun those times had been. I killed someone, and now I was at it again, needing to kill someone. Murder was a crime. I didn't believe that people should ever think murder was okay, but still. The times I had were enjoyable enough for me to commit such a crime. My friends were irreplaceable, and the time spent with them a treasure. Hanging out, laughing, sometimes tricking each other, but always in a friendly way. I didn't fear committing any crime, as long as it was for the sake of taking back those times that gave my heart so much pleasure. Yes, this was a value I decided to uphold. It wasn't something I learned from a school teacher. It was a noble path that I chose for myself. I thought back to when I'd first come to Hinamizawa. About how on the very first day Satoko had welcomed me via a blackboard eraser with a rock in it. That welcome really surprised the heck out of me. She would laugh, get angry, cry. She was never boring. She was obviously the most childlike one among us, but she was actually lively, full of vim and vigor, and good at meddling in other people's business. That went for Mion, Rina, and Rika-chan too. Wasn't Satoko the one at the center of everyone's laughing and banter? Satoko would try to look cool. Then Mion would make fun of her endlessly. Then Satoko would cry, which would put Mina in a state of ecstasy. Rika-chan would be greatly delighted. And I happened to get mixed up in it. We would always fool around like that. It was lonely when someone wasn't around, but if I had to name one for whom it was the worst, it would have been Satoko. Her smile was everyone's smile. Ever since she stopped smiling, so did the rest of us. And for the rest of us, not smiling was the same as dying. It was just like when I was silently going to cram school every day just to maintain my unchanging test scores. Ravioli was trying to get into my Rice Krispie box. You're failing, buddy. Mint's just watching. Are you winning? So, basically, we were nothing when she wasn't smiling. She was full of hot air, but she was our princess, cute and unhateable. In that case, I was her knight, searching for the dragon's castle in order to win her smile back. Knights, of course, use swords. The awesome two-handed kind. I'm probably the only knight in the history of the world to be taking someone on with a thick, rusty hatchet. Then I saw an old woman in the ridge of a field waving to me. Oh my! Kechi-kun! Out for a morning ride, I see! Good morning! I reflexively waved back in a refreshing way. Should I really have been feeling so happy waving like that? Satoko's house would be right past this road, going beyond the rice paddles. Oh, now they're double teaming. I need to go take care of that. Will you stop? May I have this, please? I don't know why you try and, bury inside of it. It doesn't work like that. So you just follow it? Okay. Ow. The cicadas had woken up too, and the next thing I knew, I was the audience to their daily chorus. I gave myself a hit or two in the head and drove away my merry morning mood. I took a deep breath, then tilted my head back, quelled my pointless excitement. The body wasn't there. The absence either meant my killing him had been an illusion or that I'd killed him and he'd risen from the dead. If I was at the festival, then maybe I should have considered it an illusion. Coach probably thought that way, which is why he treated me like a lunatic. But it being an illusion was just impossible. I killed him without a doubt. Without a doubt. If that had been an illusion, then that would make all of the Hinamizawa I was in right now an illusion. Stop! I want water. If that was the case, then here's how it would end up. I was actually in a vegetative state due to a traffic accident, and I was currently dreaming in a hospital bed about how great it would be to spend time with friends in rice paddies like this. Like these. That was a terrifying thought, though. If this wasn't an illusion, then the only possible answer was that he'd resurrected. It would make him a literal monster. But if he was such a monster, then I was no less than a monster myself. I didn't hesitate to kill someone, and I could even manipulate curses. Takano-san had died probably because I'd cursed her. Or maybe that was a little much. If Coach and Oishi died too, like I'd cursed them to yesterday, then I'd believe it. I set my bicycle aside and went to take a look. Hi Delta 9, welcome to the stream. Welcome. Thank you for the raid. Welcome. How have you been, Delta? It's been a while. I hope you've been well. What did you stream? Very good. I'm happy. Welcome, Raiders. Welcome. I set my bicycle aside and went to take a look. His motorbike wasn't here. Ender Lilies? How was it? Was it good? I never heard of it before. Of course it wasn't. I sent it down to Hall that night, throwing it into the Onigafuchi swamp. Hell. Not Hall. Hell. Or maybe, just like how the corpse wasn't here, maybe the motorbike didn't get thrown into the swamp either? The fact his bike wasn't here might have been because he had gone to town and hadn't come back, not necessarily because I'd thrown it into the swamp. Oh, it's a Metrovania. Fun. That does sound fun. I hope you made it far, and I hope the bosses weren't too hard. If her uncle wasn't around, then that was convenient on its own. Ah, my nose. Then I would just show myself in, then wait for him to return, sharpening my hatchet. If he was there... Forgotten sensations came back to my gut. A feeling of tension rose within me. The sensation was like poison, dulling my actions, but it could also be the trigger to allow me to awaken to my superhuman, otherworldly self. I held the hatchet, still wrapped in newspaper. Its weight in my hands was profound, sinister, and reliable. I didn't know what time it was without a clock, but it was probably still a little before 7. Satoko would probably be awake, preparing breakfast and her lunch, but her uncle would probably still be wallowing in indolence. A guy like him probably would have stayed up late drinking and probably always slept until noon. I considered ringing the doorbell and having Satoko open the door for me, but if her uncle woke up at the sound, I'd waste my chance of him still being asleep. If Satoko saw me sneaking inside without ringing the doorbell, she'd be surprised. If I ran into her, what would I say? I've come to kill your uncle for you, so stay quiet. No, I couldn't do that. That would be like making Satoko responsible for his death. Be quiet and go wait outside. Maybe that would do it. How would Satoko react to that? She would probably try and get me to give up on killing him. I would have to lie somehow to get her to go outside. Satoko didn't need to know that a murder was going to occur in this house. I couldn't quite think of a good lie to tell her, but I couldn't do much just standing around like this. I made up my mind and grabbed the doorknob. No problem. You got Q-tips? Then, slowly, turned it, and pulled. It wasn't locked. The gap between the door and the wall steadily grew larger. The chain wasn't even on. The oppressive smell of life in Satoko's house hit me. At the entrance, there were a few pairs of shoes and sandals. I couldn't tell whether he was here or not just by looking at them. I could hear a television on somewhere. The television was in the messy dining room. There was food scattered about the table, giving an impression decidedly different from a happy family's mealtime. Meals were for eating food while thanking the person for making it, meaning whatever occurred in this dining room wasn't a meal. Nobody in sight. No sign of anyone either. But with the television on, he must have been close. Could he have anticipated my coming and be hiding, waiting for me? The tension I felt was so thick, so tight that I thought it would choke me. The newspaper wrapping the hatchet's thick blade didn't hamper its power at all. I tightened my grip on it, then, very carefully, took a look around. Where had those peaceful feelings from before I arrived here gone? Even the sound of sweat bubbling up on my brow got on my nerves. And then, I looked at the table and realized something. This wasn't breakfast. The grains of boiled rice were all hard and dried up. Then, was it last night's dinner? I left the dining room, keeping vigilant, went down the hallway, and found the stairs to the second floor. When that man was playing with his friends, he looked out of a second-story window. It was highly possible that room was his own, and that he slept there. I tiptoed up the edges of the stairs, quietly, climbing, without making a sound. I couldn't hear any kind of snoring. I didn't hear anything up there. I went through a few rooms, slowly and quietly opening the paper doors, checking inside. But I still couldn't find anyone around. I need to go stop my cat from ripping up fucking paper towels. Will you stop? Will you stop? You're being a big butt. The biggest of butts. Hi, Ravioli. To search more efficiently, I got down on the floor and pressed my ear right up to it. I could hear the television in the dining room and a low hum, perhaps of boiling water. It was then that I started to harbor some feelings of suspicion. This house wasn't right. It seemed like people had been here since the TV was on, but it wasn't normal for nobody to be around this early in the morning. Excuse me. I silently descended the stairs and went back into the dining room. I looked at the food scattered about. Completely dried up rice, an overturned bowl of miso soup, the package for a side dish bought at the supermarket. I could tell Satoko had definitely been the one who made this. The food was far from Mion's perfection or Rina's gentleness, but it was sincere. Judging by how she cooked for me at my house, and from the type and amount of side dishes, I deduced the meal was from last night. The numbers stamped into the food package read 830620. June 20th, 1983. That was yesterday. And there was food for two, which meant that this was last night's dinner, and Satoko's uncle would have been here then. Stop it, Kechi. Don't even think about saying the word impossible again. Anyway, her uncle was here last night. That much was the truth. He had found fault with Satoko's food, thrown the bowl of miso soup, and flung the rest everywhere. Hidden deep within my feelings of calm and composure was lit a flame of anger and a curse. Should I have ever shown this man any mercy? Bump. I heard the sound again. The one from before, like a water boiler. What was it coming from? The first floor? But where? The bathroom, maybe? I could hear the noise coming from the other side of the frosted glass at the far end of the changing room. It had to have been the sound of the water boiler for the bath. Steam was enshrouding the glass door, and the heat from it was leaking into the changing room, where I was standing too. My misgivings deepened. People didn't normally take a bath this early in the morning. If one did, then it would mean that in this house, time had been stopped ever since some moment last night. Was it being reheated? The water boiler in the bathroom had been active this whole time. I checked in a clothing basket and saw Totoko's familiar uniform stuffed in it. The uniform had stains and dried rice stuck to it, certainly not something she could wear today. It was probably from the miso soup at the dinner table yesterday. I looked hard at the frosted glass, but I couldn't see anything through all the steam. And then, an electric surge ran through my mind and a terrible premonition came over me. She couldn't possibly have been in there since last night. That would be impossible! But no! In Hinamazawa right now, nothing was impossible. I gulped audibly, then quietly pulled aside the glass door. Hot, steaming air burst out of the slight opening. The fan wasn't on in the changing room, so it went completely white with the steam. Just as the hot vapor poured into the changing room, cooler air also flowed into the room with the bath. And I just heard, due to being hit by that air, a very weak moan. That was all I needed to know who it was. Satoko! No answer. Satoko was in the bathtub, surrounded by a thick layer of rising steam. The top half of her body was leaning over the edge of the tub, and she was passed out. The water boiler kept on making a whistling noise as if angered. I could see the gas flame through a small window. It was roaring at full force, completely blue. Satoko's entire body was boiled red and flaccid, as though her bones had melted away. She was almost like a doll, as she laid there unconscious. I wasn't sure how many seconds had passed as I stared in complete bafflement. I came back to my senses and probably shut off the boiler. Then I dragged Satoko's small body out of the bathtub, and the water in it was as hot as the water in public baths. Was she in this boiling water for the entire night? She'll die! She'll die! Satoko's body was lighter than I expected as I laid her on the floor and wrapped in a towel. I went back into the bathroom and opened up the vent, creating a path for a cool breeze to come through. Upon the breeze hitting her, Satoko moaned again. It'll be alright, Satoko. It's me, Kechi! Kechi! Can you hear me? Satoko recognized me and muttered a response, but I couldn't really tell what she was saying. Her eyes were muddy and unfocused. I could tell she wasn't completely conscious. Upon closer inspection, her limbs and waist were twitching slightly. This was way worse than normal overheating. This was dangerous. Didn't they call this heat stroke? Think, what would the teacher do if a girl passed out in the middle of summer during a marathon in gym class or something? I turned the water faucet in the kitchen all the way on and soaked a towel in it. I then took the cold towel and pressed it to Satoko's forehead. Satoko reacted harshly to the coldness and let out a muffled voice. For burns? Right, you would soak the burn spot under running water. Then, could I run cold water in the shower and cool her off like that? No, if it was that sudden, it wouldn't be good for her heart, and she'd go into shock. I think I'd read that once before. This was about as much nursing as I could possibly give her. Anything more than this would be too much for the likes of an amateur. What happened, Satoko? You're all right now. Your Nini will save you for sure. 5,039. 540. What was reacting under her breath, reciting under her breath? I brought my ear to her mouth to better make out the mysterious spell, like words she kept saying, and at that moment I understood what they were for. Satoko, you're counting? Why? People tell little kids in the bath to count to 100 a lot, right? Satoko was counting like that, but 5,039? You moron! How long were you supposed to count in your own bathtub? 10. I doubted my ears and doubted her common sense. To 10,000? You're a freaking idiot! What kind of dumbass can count to 10,000? There's no way you could do that! You boiled to death before you got that far! Why were you... My uncle... Last night, her uncle flew into a rage at the dinner she'd made, saying it stunk and was inedible. Satoko didn't understand what on earth he meant. It wasn't much different than what she usually made for him. Maybe he hated the smell of pickled vegetables she bought in particular. Her uncle then decided the stink was originating from Satoko and shouted at her that she never ever took baths. And then he put Satoko in the boiling water and told her not to come out until she counted 2. I'll kill you! I snapped and exploded. Raising the newspaper wrapped hatchet, I stampeded through the house. I searched for anything, traces, signs, smells, vibrations, heartbeats. With a war cry, I raced up the stairs with such force I could have stomped a hole through them. Then I found the futon in the room I thought to be her uncle's, and well aware he wasn't sleeping in it, I bashed it with the hatchet. Did he run into the closet? I'll bust the entire closet down, door and all. And if he's not there, maybe there's a secret door and switches or levers in the walls here. I smashed into the wall after wall with the hatchet, crushing them. Dust rose to the air and broken pieces scattered about the floor. I smashed all the glass windows too, for good measure. After I destroyed everything beyond recognition in her uncle's room, my reason finally kicked in and suppressed my emotions. Anyway, her uncle wasn't in the house right now. I'd have to leave killing him until later. Right now, I had to do something about Satoko. Take her to the hospital. I went back to the changing room. Satoko was still lying limp on the floor. There was nothing more an amateur like me could do for her. I needed to take her to the clinic. Coach had treated me like a lunatic yesterday and tried to lock me up in a mental hospital. I never wanted to see his damn face again, but I still needed to go to the infirmary one more time. I need to have a doctor look at Satoko. I thought about putting her in the dirty uniform lying in the laundry basket, but I had no experience dressing someone, so it would be pretty difficult. You are a kid. Shit, I don't have time to be wasting here. I eventually gave up on clothing her and decided to carry her in her bath towel. The clinic was close to Toko's house. It would be way faster to carry her there than to call 119 and get an ambulance. Hi, Bagger. Welcome to the stream. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Hope you're having a nice day. Hello, and thank you for the lurk. I appreciate it a lot, and I appreciate everyone who's lurking right now or chatting. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. Thank you. I threw the biggest towel I could find over her and prompted her to stand. Can you stand? I'll carry you over to the clinic. Thank you. Her words sounded clearer than before. She was starting to come back. I cried tears of relief just knowing she'd improved even just a little bit. Satoko turned over so she was lying on her face and then put up a weak struggle to get up on a knee. I smoothly swept her up and put her on my back. The towel I put on her seemed like it was about to fall off. The towel. It hurts. We'll be there soon. It won't be long to stay strong. It didn't hurt one bit to carry Satoko. She was light. Too light. The lightness actually made me uneasy. Outside, it had gotten hotter, as though eager to attack Satoko. Fucking cicadas. Why did it have to choose this morning to get so hot out? I didn't have time to swear at them. The clinic was this way. Hoisting Satoko on my back, I broke into a trot. Let's go! Gotta take Satoko to the hospital! Gotta take her to the hospital! Go, go, go! Run, run, run! The hilly road to the clinic, with which I had never had difficulties before, was now tortuous. Big beads of sweat formed on my brow, and at some point my breath had grown faint. The hatchet in my belt was heavy and made it hard to walk. I considered leaving it, but I couldn't let it go, at least not while Satoko's uncle was still breathing. The signboard for the Erie Clinic came into sight, but I quickly noticed something was odd, so I stopped. Several red revolving lights were flashing at the clinic. 3 police cars were parked in the parking lot with their lights on. There didn't need to be much else to inform me something had happened. I didn't want to see Coach, so I had planned to leave Satoko in the clinic waiting room and give the receptionist a message. But with that police officer Oishi here, I couldn't go inside so carelessly. What's going on? Why are there so many police cars? I gently put Satoko down on the shade of this thicket. I don't know. I'll go see what happens, so you stay here for a moment. Leaving a lady
in a place like this wearing nothing but a towel. Simply unforgivable.
If you can still fire off those insults, you'll be fine. I'll be right back, I added, getting to my feet. Cautious of my surroundings, I hid myself behind a car and got closer to the officers grouped at the clinic's entrance. I overheard an officer wearing a necktie, probably their leader, and a white-robed doctor having a discussion about something. The doctor didn't seem to be Coach. It was one of those who Coach told to make the tea yesterday.
So you were the first one to find it since you were on morning duty, so then what did it look like?
He was sitting on the sofa in the head office. He looked like he was taking a nap.
There was a jug and an empty bottle of sleep medication on his desk, so you immediately thought he had tried to commit suicide with it. What else?
His high temperature and incontinence indicated a severe disturbance of consciousness. It seemed like a typical case of sleeping pill poisoning, so I immediately began to treat him.
Without calling the police or an ambulance?
This is a hospital, and I'm a doctor. Since his life was in danger, it's my job to treat him at once.
Yes, I understand, okay, what else?
His breathing was in disarray, so I put him on a respirator. I also administered breathing stimulants. It had no effect, so I prepared a medical ventilator and...
Right. So, in other words, you did what you could, but it wasn't enough. That's right, that's it, right? You reported this as soon as he died?
Yes. It was very unfortunate that we were unable to save him. Just then, a radio in one of the police cars started to buzz, producing a broken mechanical voice. This is HQ! This is HQ!
Komiya-san, can you hear me? Over.
Hello, this is Komiyama. We've come up with something. It looks like he committed suicide with sleeping pills. No notes or anything.
Suicide? What the heck were they talking about? Someone had committed suicide at the clinic? But who? I wish Takano-san dead, and she died the next day. And yesterday, I wished Coach was dead. Then, could he have?
Did he use sleeping medication regularly?
I don't really know.
Did he normally complain that he was tired or wanted to die?
Well, Eri-sensei was normally so, himself. He never acted like that. So, I was right. Eri-sensei. They were talking about Coach. Coach killed himself. Why would he do that? There couldn't have been any reason he wanted to die. The only reason that came to mind was that I wanted him dead. This world was insane. If I wanted someone dead, they'd die. That was the kind of world this was. Then, what about Oishi? What happened to him? If people really died because I wanted them to, then something should have happened to him too. I've sent you backup. The chief wants you to leave the rest of them and get back to the searching for Uchi's car. Yes, sir! Please excuse me then. It looks like we're getting relieved here, so please leave everything as it is right now. Alright, let's go! The officers nodded and split up into the patrol cars. Did they just say, searching for Oishi's car? Searching for his car? That meant he had gone missing? Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi. When I wished for it, the very next day, they disappeared. No matter how angry you were when you said you wished someone was dead, it didn't normally happen. Everyone knew just wishing for it wouldn't make them dead, and that's why people could utter such curses so lightly. But the curses I uttered were being granted. At the time, I hadn't even been walking, and yet... Tap. I heard a footstep. And it wasn't only one this time. They came from behind, and they stood right behind me, reaching a hand for my shoulder.
Would you mind telling me what's going on?
Satoko? Don't scare me like that!
I'm the scared one here. I prefer it if you didn't shout so suddenly.
It was Satoko. Her eyes were still unstable, unfocused, but she seemed able to at least walk on her own now. She looked far better now compared to her earlier exhausted state. How do you feel? Are you better?
My head still hurts, but I can't stay outside looking like this forever.
She gave me a smile, a show of courage, but her legs were still shaky. Anyway, what on earth is going on? From what I just heard the police talking about, Coach apparently committed suicide. Satoko was at a loss for words. Her face grew paler and paler, and I could tell she was doubting her own ears.
Kechi-san, is that true? I didn't mishear you?
That's what I heard. They said Eri-sensei killed himself with sleeping pills. Satoko went down on her knees and broke out in tears.
It can't be!
As I watched Toko crying and clawing at the grass, I felt myself trapped by guilt and remorse. I got so angry that Coach was treating me like a madman yesterday, that he'd betrayed me, that I thought he'd be better off dead. But even Coach, who, to me, deserved to die, still must have had people who loved and respected him. Like Satoko here. In my selfish, egotistical anger, I wished for his death, and it was granted. And now Satoko was crying hysterically as a result. The guilt tore at my heart. I worked myself up to murder for Satoko's sake. I decided I wanted Satoko to be happy. But was that really all it took? Murder meant taking someone's life. It meant making everyone attached to that person sad. In Satoko's uncle's case, of course nobody would be sad. So I didn't feel a sense of guilt at all. But Coach's death was different. I had wanted to make Satoko happy, and that had resulted in me inflicting a deep sadness upon her, hadn't it? But Coach killed himself. It wasn't my... Satoko still hadn't stopped crying, but she seemed to be a little calmer now. Wiping her tears, she stood up. I'm sorry. And the only thing I could think of to say to her was an apology.
Why are you apologizing?
Yesterday I got into a fight with Coach, and I thought that I wanted him to die. I wanted it, so he really... Satoko looked at me dubiously for a few moments. Eventually her expression softened as she interpreted my words in her own way.
It isn't your fault, Kechi-san. Coach was an adult too. He felt like there was something he had to give his life for, and chose to do so after a lot of worrying and suffering. It's not anyone's fault.
She smiled a little, trying to comfort me.
I do not want to be naked forever. I want some clothes.
Are you okay? Shouldn't you get someone at the clinic too? I won't die from putting on clothes before going. Satoko readjusted her bath towel and started back along the path. Her stride was wobbly, and it didn't look like she'd recovered as much as she let on. At first, Satoko tried to go back home, but it was the time of the morning when people were going to school and to work, so after seeing people walking around, she thought better of it. She must have been pretty embarrassed wearing only the towel.
I'm going to Rika's house. My clothes should be there. What's wrong? Kechi-san?
Satoko noticed how I was hanging my head and spoke to me.
Despite how he might have come off, Coach was an adult, right? He would certainly not have killed himself after a petty fight with you, Kechi-san. Please, stop blaming yourself.
At first I thought it was a coincidence, but with 3 people now, I couldn't discard the possibility. There was no such thing as impossible in the world. These past few days haven't made any sense.
What hasn't?
Satoko seemed to be having trouble breathing, but she still tried to listen to what I had to say. At the Wanagashi festival the day before last, you went home on the way there, right? And I went there and had a lot of fun.
So it would seem. I do apologize for getting so upset with you about it.
Satoko remembered how she blew up at me in the classroom yesterday and bowed to me a little. If I said I actually didn't go to the festival at all, would you believe me? Satoko looked at me confused. She couldn't help it, of course.
Of course I wouldn't believe you. What are you on about?
You wouldn't, right? I don't believe it either. I mean, I didn't go to the festival, but everyone's saying I hung out with them there. Nobody would believe it, right?
Are you being serious?
Yeah, Ever since the night of the Wanagashi, everything's been messed up. These weird footsteps suddenly started following me everywhere. The blood drained from Toko's expression. Footsteps following you? Yeah, I thought it was just my imagination at first, but they stayed with me. They're probably still there. I can't tell them apart now because of your footsteps, though. Toko took a long and hard look at me. Maybe she was doubting my sanity. Coach did the same thing. I mean, why wouldn't he, after telling him this? The more I thought about it, the more I was unable to endure the feeling that my hatred for Coach had been meaningless.
On the day of the Wanagashi, I didn't go.
I was doing something else the whole time. I wasn't sleeping or unconscious or anything, so it's not possible that I walked to the festival in my sleep and forgot about it afterwards.
That is quite strange. Then how were you at the festival?
That's what I mean. I didn't go to the festival. No, I can't let myself get emotional. If I get agitated now, that would be like proving that there's something wrong with my head. Ah, sorry. Well, nobody believes me, so yeah.
If that is what you say, Kechi-san, then I will believe you. Then what?
That night, I saw Takano-san, and it felt like she was looking down on me, so I made a wish that she would die.
Takano-san does have that sort of air about her, doesn't she? I cannot say that I don't understand how you feel.
Did you know that Takano-san died? It happened yesterday. Apparently she was burned alive somewhere.
Is that true? She died?
I wished for her to die, and the next day, she was dead. And a wishy from the police, too. Do you know him? That annoying and fat detective guy. Toko nodded a little. I heard from the police earlier, but apparently he went missing. And yesterday, actually. I wished that he would die.
Is this all true?
I'm not lying. I don't want to believe it either, but it's true. Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi, I wanted them dead, and then they really died. For a little while, Toko was at a loss. A long silence ensued.
Ho ho! Ho 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 ho! What a scary story! I should be sure not to get on your bad side, Kechi-san.
And that's not all. There's something even stranger. It's about your uncle.
I would rather you not talk about my uncle.
He was there yesterday, right? At your house.
Could we please stop talking about him? I don't want to.
It's impossible. He couldn't have been there.
I said stop talking about him. No!
That man couldn't have been there after the night of the Wanagashi. Because I...
No! No more, please! No more about that man!
I killed him with my own hands! Even the cicadas stopped crying. Her face was streaked with tears, and it stiffened even more as she looked at me in disbelief. On the night of the Wanagashi festival, I killed your uncle. So, it's impossible that he could have gone back home. But still, he went back! And last night, he found fault with the dinner you made him, yelled all sorts of things at you, and then basically boiled you in the bathtub. That couldn't possibly have happened. So I wanted to make sure I'd actually killed him. So yesterday, I went to dig up the corpse I buried, but the body wasn't there. Is that even possible? I killed him for sure, but there was no body. And he went home like nothing happened. Home to you, and that wasn't supposed to happen, was it? Satoko's entire body stiffened. She was shrinking away, like there was someone in front of her about to hurt her. You probably think I've gone a little crazy, don't you? I don't blame you. I can't believe it myself.
Kechi-san, I think you are very confused after all the people you wished were dead coincidentally died. You're just in shock at Coach's suicide and you're really upset. I think you should stay home from school today and rest. I'll be fine, so please take care of yourself.
So Toko spoke like she understood me. But she also told me to go home. I could see the revulsion in her face and knew that she didn't want to be around me anymore. Once I show you the clinic, I'll go home. Your legs are still shaking, aren't they? It would be terrible if you collapsed halfway there.
Really, I am fine now. I do not want to expose my naked self to a man any more than this.
She waddled up the shrine steps, looking like she was about to fall. I immediately ran up to her and helped her to stay on her feet. But then Sotoko promptly jumped away from me. That outright rejection hurt a lot. Once she got to the top of the stairs, her breathing was ragged, and she wasn't even looking at me. At this point, I was being ignored. Well, it was more like she didn't want to have anything to do with me. It really was a feeling of rejection, and that hurt my heart more than any blade could have. This was the path I chose for her sake. To be treated like this at the end of it all was just so saddening. Don't be naive, Kechimabara. You never wanted to be repaid in the first place. You didn't do it so that Sotoko would thank you. You did it so Sotoko would be happy. And that was what led to this ending. Rika-chan's house was a disaster prevention storehouse used to the town council. If you went past it a little further through the shrine grounds, you'd apparently reach the back of the assembly hall. Sotoko was heading there, walking quickly, the gravel under her feet crunching as she went. Did she want to get there as soon as possible, or did she want to run away? I couldn't tell. And then I heard the vigorous sound of wings flapping. I turned around and saw a crow. I hadn't seen many crows since coming to Hinamizawa. I saw them a lot in my old town, though. On garbage day, they'd flock to trash collection points, peck through the bags with their beaks, drag out the contents, and have a feast. As I was remembering that, I saw a few crows flocking around the shrine's donation box, and I thought how terrible it was for someone to leave a garbage bag in a place like that. The cicadas quieted. Breathing stopped. Thoughts ceased. Even time came to a halt. I ran over to where the crows were flocking. I ran there in order to drive a horrible idea out of my mind. I definitely hadn't wanted this. There's no way I would ever wish for this even by mistake. This was not. When they noticed my vicious approach, the crows all flapped upwards, fleeing into the sky. When the crows' big black bodies flew away, they exposed the garbage bag. What had I seen there? The scream escaped from my throat before I understood what I was looking at. What was this? Sotoko came over as well, realizing something had happened, and she looked over my shoulder. Then she screamed as well. This wasn't! The garbage bag was crimson, dyed in fresh blood. Enough of this stupid roundabout way of saying it. That's right. Yes! It was Rika-chan! Our friend Sotoko's best friend. Always easygoing, clever as a cat, but so cute you couldn't hate her. Our friend Rika-chan. Rika-chan was stark naked. She was face up, limbs sprawled. Her eyes were like glass, just staring up into the sky. And Rika! Sotoko. Oh, that was Sotoko. The sounds be scraping. Sotoko broke down crying on the spot, and yet she still couldn't approach her friend's remains. The crows had gotten through the garbage bag and they dragged out an apple peel and spread it all over. No. Crows, they couldn't do this. On the spot, I started vomiting. The sour taste became a bitter one as I threw up over and over again. Rika-chan, her stomach was cut wide open vertically, completely open. Rika! Crows couldn't have done this. And from her open stomach, her organs, her bowels were dragged out like children's toys left all over the floor. That unbelievable sight induced oxygen deprivation in my brain. Color left my vision, a pounding headache, dizzy, and I wanted to vomit. It was like the nightmarish remains of a ceremonial killing. Someone, somewhere, had killed Rika-chan, brought her here, laid her here with her limbs sprawled out, and then cut open her stomach and dragged out her intestines. Red and pink viscera were sticking out of her gut, and her intestines were scattered in every direction like it had been for fun. The entire ground was covered in an ocean of red and black. A few of the crows had hopped around inside that ocean. They walked through the sea of blood, leaving bloody footprints, and those footprints, there were several still left on Rika-chan's body. Those sinister prints made it seem even more like a bizarre ritual killing. I may have wished for Takano-san and Coach and Oishi to die, but I didn't remember ever wishing for Rika-chan's death. Yeah, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I stumbled backwards, then stepped on a newspaper. A newspaper in a place like this? The newspaper was what was covering my hatchet. I had kept it wrapped up on my belt in order to carry Satoko, and that newspaper had fallen off. Sheesh, don't scare me like that. I bent down to pick it up, and then Satoko looked at me with such disbelief as I'd never seen, and froze. She was looking straight at me, at the hatchet on my belt. Calm down, Satoko. This isn't what it looks like. Satoko, trembling madly, backed away. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't. Murderer? She didn't care at all that she was exposing herself through the towel. She just trembled and tried to step back from the demon in front of her. Satoko, please, calm down. Please, relax. Satoko? No. Screaming weakly, Satoko began to run unsteadily. Run away, that is. Wait! Please wait, Satoko! You're wrong! That's not it! The way she ran away, it was so weak, so slow. So if I wanted to go after her, I could have caught up. But if I tried to grab Satoko's shoulder or something right now, she might actually go crazy. So I had to follow her and try and clear this up. You killed Takano-san and Coach and Oishi-san, didn't you? You killed my uncle and then you killed Rika! You murderer! No, it wasn't me. I didn't kill her. What are you saying? You just said it yourself, did you not? You wanted them to die and then everyone died, didn't they? Well, no. Just wishing that they were dead. That couldn't. You don't even remember what you did you? Do you? How can I trust a person like you? Didn't your memory of killing them just slip your mind? No, maybe you're only pretending not to remember. Besides, what is that hatchet for? Try explaining that. It's for... See? Kechi-san, you are a killer, aren't you? Why did you do it? You were a little mean, but you were fun and kind, and once I even thought you might be my real Nini. Why did you turn into this? I might have been able to slowly answer each one of Satoko's questions at a time, but in this situation, explaining my innocence in such a short period of time was impossible. I mean, I didn't even know what if I was really innocent anyway. At the very least, I killed Satoko's uncle. There was no body, but I killed him, without a doubt. At that point, I was far from innocent, and I wished Takano-san, Coach, and Oishi were dead, and that curse of mine was granted. When I wished for Takano-san to die, I didn't think of it as anything more than a normal thing you'd say to someone you don't like. But then she actually did die, and I realized that if I wanted people to die, they would. And, hoping it would happen again, I cursed Coach and Oishi to the same fate. So, even ignoring Takano-san's death, Coach's and Oishi's were completely premeditated crimes. Was I a killer, just like Satoko said? Was I unable to distinguish between illusion and reality, and turned into a demon without remembering it, becoming a killer who carried out Oyashiro-sama's curse? No, that couldn't be. It was impossible. Ah, damn it! The very word impossible was impossible in Hinamizawa right now. How many freaking times have I said that word these past 3 days? Satoko had started crying again and was walking unsteadily. At first it felt like she was still running, but now it was like she was walking away crying for someone bullying her. Why? Why did things turn out this way? Why? Why? If there was an answer to that, then I wanted to know it too. Why? Why had it turned out like this?
After Nini went away, I was lonely for a long time. But then Kechi-san transferred to our school and everyone was happy. It was fun again and every day was beautiful.
Yeah, she was right. Those days were bright and beautiful. And yet... After that, Satoko and I shouted the exact same thing. How did it turn out like this? The cicadas were sneering at the spectacle, our strange game of tag. Ah, shut up, shut up, shut up. Eventually I heard the murmuring of a stream. The forest parted and a suspension bridge appeared. Satoko was crossing dangerously, wobbling as though she might fall at any moment, and when I stepped onto the bridge, it swayed a lot, causing Satoko to stagger and fall on the spot. Satoko, are you okay?
Don't come near me! You murderer!
Satoko shouted, her hatred made very clear. It was sad. If words could cut, then this warmth flowing from my eyes could have been blood for sure.
Why? Why did you turn out this way? Kechi-san, I really liked you.
I wanted to go up to her and give her a hand, but the distance between us was uncrossable. If I got any closer, Satoko would start shouting again and say things that would hurt me deeply again, so I couldn't approach any closer than this. Satoko, I don't know how things turned out like this either, but I can say this. I wasn't the one who killed Rika-chan. At least that is true.
Please stop being so absurd! How do you expect me to believe anything someone who can't even rely on his own memories has to say?
I tightened my hands to fists. This was mortifying. I wasn't crazy. Hinamizawa was crazy, ever since I wandered into it lost on that one night. This insane world, where I was at the festival when I wasn't, and the uncle I killed was alive, where death would come just by wishing for it, it was this world's fault. Mion and Rina started acting strangely, like they were possessed by something too, and Coach wouldn't believe anything I had to say. And even Satoko, who I should have protected, was yelling at me like this. Was the price for killing a man supposed to be this high? Was I really going to be forced to stay in such a bitter world? I did the right thing. At least I wanted to. So then, why? I hated it every time I asked why. The days Satoko and I enjoyed in peace went so wrong. Satoko, please believe me. I'm not a murderer.
Then what is that hatchet for? Can you give a convincing explanation for that?
Is this hatchet scaring you? Okay, I'll throw it away. That's what you want, right? Satoko didn't nod, but she seemed to be in agreement with that proposition. I clumsily took the hatchet out of my belt, then dropped it over the side of the bridge into the stream below. There, it's gone. Now, you'll listen to me, right?
You think I'll let my guard down just because you got rid of your weapon? Kechi-san, you're strong. It would be easy for you to strangle me with your bare hands.
Like hell I would. Ever want to kill Satoko? You idiot. Then what should I do? Should I put my hands on my head?
Yes, why don't you? Please put your hands on your head and face the other way.
It was a cunning plan, much like the one she used during club activities. Putting my hands on my head and turning away would mean I couldn't attack Satoko very easily. I immediately acquiesced to her request, since it would make her feel better. Is this alright? Please listen to what I have to say. Satoko stood up, then carefully approached me from behind, and then she actually came right up behind me. She was so close, and yet I was so sad that I wasn't allowed to turn around.
I sort of think I understand that it isn't your fault, Kechi-san.
Huh?
I think probably you have just been possessed by something evil. Until before, I thought Kechi-san was a killer. But now I know. After looking at your eyes,
I could hear that Satoko was still crying, but her voice was gentle just the same.
Kechi-san could never kill anyone. Something simply possessed his body and made him do evil things.
Was she speaking literally right now? Or was she trying to admonish me? I couldn't tell.
Come to think of it, maybe they were possessed, just like Kechi-san. At the time, I was only thinking I would be killed, so I didn't think about it. But now I understand that was the work of something evil that possessed you.
Satoko? What are you? It was less like she was talking to me, and more like she was talking to herself, like she was confessing out my back.
I understand, you know. It isn't like I haven't experienced it myself.
Satoko's voice started to become mixed with sobs. Her pained voice tore at my heart, but I didn't know what Satoko was talking about.
I climbed to the top of the ritual storehouse once. It was a few years ago.
Once, when Satoko was playing hide-and-seek at the shrine grounds, she climbed onto the roof of the storehouse for ritual implements, which everyone said not to go near, and hid. Then, Satoko saw that she could get in through a window meant for ventilation. For Satoko, the word curse was plenty scary, but she was more curious about what was inside the unknown storehouse. She removed the grating on the window, which was already hanging off, slid her small body into it, and climbed down inside. It was too dark to see much, but after descending, she realized just how high up she'd been. Despite the darkness, she could see a few things around her thanks to the faint light coming in from the window, and to her disappointment, it was just a regular old storehouse. She tried to leave, but the door was locked up tight from the outside, and it was made to not open from within. She would have to go back out through the ventilation window she'd come from in. But the window was high on the wall, and there was no way she would be able to climb back up. Satoko desperately tried not to cry, and racked her brain thinking of a way to get up there. There were a lot of birdcage-looking things hanging by chains from the ceiling. She took the hanging chains and strung them along the wall. If she climbed up the bundle of chains, she might be able to manage to climb up the ventilation window. There was nothing else she could do, so she had to try. And try she did. It was dark and creepy, and she didn't want to stay there forever. The more she thought about that, the more she panicked. She climbed the bundle of chains. Satoko could hear the clinks and clangs of everything creaking under her weight, and then, just as her hand reached the window, one of the metal fixtures she'd used to stick the chains on the wall flew off, and the chains all began to pull loudly and furiously every which way. Spurred on by the sounds behind her, she managed to get back onto the roof from the window. Because of the weight of the flailing bundle of chains, the other fixtures broke, and then one of the big bird cages hanging from the ceiling fell to the floor with a huge noise. Under it was an image of Oyashiro-sama, his vessel, and the cage took off one of the arms, then trapped some other implements beneath it. It didn't take very long for her to grow scared of what she'd done. The deafening noise could be heard from the rest of the shrine grounds. A few other children heard it and gathered round, and of course, Rika was one of them. Then Rika's father, the shrine's priest, with an angry look ran over. And then, as for what happened next, it was painful to remember. The only one who knew where Rika's parents kept the key into the ritual storehouse was Rika. So he scolded her, saying that this happened because Rika pulled a prank and hid me in there. He was very angry and menacing. Just looking at him was enough to frighten anyone. He exposed Rika's back, took a strangely shaped ritual cane or something, and struck her with it several times. Rika's words at the time, "It wasn't me, it wasn't me, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." That pitiful voice, I still can't get out of my head. I should have said it was me.
I should have said so, to save my best friend from that false accusation, without being afraid of Rika's father's terrible temper. Rika gritted her teeth and cried at the crime she didn't remember doing. Ever since then, the world had been strange. I know I understand. This is Oyashiro-sama's curse. His judgment for messing up the ritual storehouse and forsaking my best friend. Oyashiro-sama's curse. My father and mother too, they vanished in that muddy stream. My mean aunt died too, but then Nini, who loved me more than anyone, ran away from home. And then Kechi-san transferred in, and I thought I'd finally gotten my fun life back, but this time, Kechi-san was possessed, and even Rika got killed. There's something I heard once. Oyashiro-sama, when he really curses someone, he doesn't kill them right away. He goes in order of your closest friends, and after killing them all, he kills that person last. So, Kechi-san, the curse got you too. I'm sure that Rina-san and Mion-san will be cursed next. And then they'll kill and be killed. No, no more. No! No! Oh, that was still Satoko. Calm down, Satoko. There is no curse. Nobody is trying to torment you. When I turned around, I was thrust away with amazing force. Given my hands were awkwardly placed on my head, I couldn't take the fall and lost my balance. And I'd been pushed on into the bridge, but to the side. Towards the stream. No, this can't be happening. Wah! As one last miracle, I was allowed to grab a cord hanging from the bridge. Far below me was the stream. We were pretty high up, and below were rocks of all sizes. If I fell, it clearly wouldn't be pretty. The entire bridge was tilting under my body weight. My frail little grip probably wouldn't last another minute before my fingers had to let go. Satoko! Satoko! I didn't understand myself, what I meant by shouting her name then. Was I asking her to save me? Or was I asking her why she did this? Finally, everything came back into focus and I saw Satoko. And I was surprised at what an odd expression she had. It was the first time I'd seen it. It was an expression of righteous anger meant only for those who needed to die. Die, you murderer! Give it back! Give back my Nini! Give back Rika and Mommy and Kechi-san! As she screamed, she jerked the bridge to and fro. She didn't have to do that. I was going to fall anyway. I won't lose to the likes of you! I won't lose to some stupid curse! I will never ever lose to you! You took everyone! I will never lose to you, not ever! Satoko, please, just let me say one thing. I don't know what my face looked like at that time, but it seemed like it was enough to quell Satoko's agitation. I know that what I did isn't exactly praiseworthy. No, in fact, maybe I should never have done it at all. But I did it because I wanted you to be happy. Please just believe that. You, at the very, very end, you're still pretending to be Kechi-san. Satoko didn't seem to have any more desire to listen to what I had to say, and for that to happen at the very end like this was tragic. I didn't do any of it so you could praise me. If it made you happy, that was all that mattered. We were nothing. Without your smile, we were nothing. So, after I disappear, please smile. If you can get on with your new life by my dying, then please, just smile. Can't you at least promise me that? Stop speaking! Don't use Kechi-san's mouth like that! Fall down! Die! And those were the last words Satoko ever said to me. Those sad, tragic, and altogether unrewarding words. What on earth was I? My desire to make Satoko happy ended up like this. Where did I first go wrong? And what was the mistake I made? When did I make it? Was I the crazy one, or was it Hinamizawa? Even after all of this, I thought I wasn't crazy at all. It was this eerie world that was crazy. This world I'd accidentally wandered into that one night. Because that fun world where I never doubted all the crazy times we had as a club would go on forever. It couldn't possibly.
have transformed into such an abnormal world. That fun world wouldn't have ever ended with this, with Satoko pushing me to my death. In the end, I was going to be swallowed up by this crazy world and disappear. No, I probably already disappeared. Yes, probably. On the night of the Wanadagashi, I'm sure that in the world I really belonged to, I had vanished that night and everyone was worried. It was laughable that I had taken this long to figure out I wasn't around anymore. Oyashiro-sama's curse on the 5th year was Satoko's uncle dying and me disappearing. In the real world, Satoko had already been freed. Maybe my friends were all lamenting my disappearance, lamenting, and valiantly trying to get back on their feet. And even though they were down to 4 people, the club would reopen, and they would have a good time without me, waiting for the day when I would come back. I'm sorry, everyone. I couldn't come back home. But this is what I wished for. It was my wish for Satoko's smile and my duty as her Nini. At this point, there will be nobody left to torture you. Because Satoshi and I, it took 2 years, but we succeeded. That annoying toothy smile of yours, we wanted to see it one more time. My pain wasn't gentle or merciful. It was a sharp pain, violent, powerful, and ruthless. What little compassion I had receded in the span of a moment. And now, I could die. I could say goodbye to this insane world. Farewell, crazed Hinamizawa. Thanks for giving me the psychic power to kill people whenever I wanted. If you'll still allow it, I'll wish for one last thing. The death of this very world, of this crazed Hinamizawa, so that nobody would ever again have to find themselves lost here again. So, what? Are there 13 chapters? Oh my god, there's 13 chapters? I didn't know there was 13! Yo! Well, I don't know what's going on. This is a long one. I thought there was only 12. Alright, so chapter 13 is going to be coming along later. Thank you everyone for joining me. I need to get changed and get ready and stuff. So I hope to see everyone again soon. Bye-bye for now. No problem, no problem. Thanks for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope to see everyone again soon. Bye-bye for now. Bye!